Today, I'm going to show you how I color grade footage shot on the Blackmagic Pocket 6K in 6K B-Raw. So let's get into it. First off, we're going to go into the color tab, and as you can see in the clip, there's a color checker passport video. This is for reference, so let's start off with that. First, we're going to add our scope. So let's start off with a waveform, and then go into the camera raw settings, click on project, and clip. This allows us to change the Blackmagic raw controls of the clip. So when I change, for example, the ISO to 800, we are actually changing the ISO of the clip to 800. Let's change it back to 400 because that's the base ISO. The first thing we're going to do is add a little bit of contrast to the clip, and as you can see in the waveform, it does just that. That's a little bit too much. Then let's move this down a little bit, and let's bring our highlights down just a little bit. Highlight roll off. Let's change our white level just a little bit. Down, maybe bring up our black level. No, let's bring down our black level. And let's add some saturation as well. There we go. Now let's bring down our exposure just a little bit. Let's do that with ISO, maybe set it to 250. And then let's maybe change our midpoint just a little bit as well. Bring it up just a little bit. Now we're getting pretty close here, but I want to be able to dial in this exactly. So what I'm going to do is go into the power window right here and have this little pen tool right here. With two fingers, I'm going to zoom into the footage and select the exposure graph right here. Draw a little box around it and then click this button right here. That disables the rest of the clip so I can focus on just the exposure. Now we're going to go back into camera raw and change this a little bit. Let's bring up our white level and down our black level so we can get a little bit more contrast in the clip. Now this is a little bit small, so I'm just going to expand the menu. Now we're a little bit too big, make it just a single, shrink this down a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty close, and we just want to move those mids down just a little bit. So let's change our white level, maybe bring that down just a little bit more. Okay, that looks very good. Then we're going to change our color temperature so that these make solid lines, so that our white balance is set properly, just like that. And then we're going to do the same thing with our tint. We want to make them just solid white lines, just like that. Now I think our blacks are a little bit too black, so I'm just going to bring that up just a little bit, and there we go. Everything is set pretty evenly, and our white balance and our tint is set right, so let's disable this and see how it looks. That looks really, really good. Now, again, we're just using the raw control, so if we disable the color grade, nothing happens. But we can also drag the clip onto the timeline again to see the difference. So we can go back. This is before, this is after. So a huge difference. And remember, this is just with the raw controls. So we're not really harming the clip in any way. Now let's get a little bit more fun with it. Let's go back to where the color checker is, right about there. And then let's zoom into this and add a new node. Well, actually, we don't need to because we just did the raw controls. Let's take your eyedropper, let's take our power window and move this down to the hue box. And let's change our scope to vector scope. We don't really need our skin tones right now, so we're just gonna shrink this just to the colors, just like that. Sometimes the vector scope isn't super visible, so we're just going to go into the settings and make sure that all of these are maxed out. Color and 2x zoom. Now we're just gonna make this a little bit bigger by expanding it there. Let's move blue a little bit. So let's go into the curves tab and go to hue versus hue. Now we can add all these little dots here, and this adds at the same spot, basically, that these hues are supposed to be. So we're just gonna change these a little bit. So let's bring our blue down. Let's bring our green down as well. And then let's see, purple could come up a little bit, magenta. And then let's bring up our saturation as well. So hue versus sat, do the same thing with all the little dots. And what we're trying to do is line up, you can't really see it, but line up all these little dots to be inside the vector scope square. So let's bring up our green to be in the dot, bring up our aqua, I guess, to be in the dot as well. And that kind of is affecting the green a little bit. So let's bring that up as well. Blue is right where it's supposed to be. Bring up magenta to be in the dot. And I can't really find yellow. Where's yellow? Oh, there's yellow. That's basically where it needs to be. So let's just go to hue versus hue and adjust that slightly to be right inside the little box. And then the red can come down just a tiny bit, bring that down. And green as well can come down just a little bit now. And then green could also go up in the hue editor, and then blue could go up a little bit. Okay, now let's go back into hue versus saturation and bring down green just a tiny bit, and then bring up blue if we can. Oh, we can't, but it's close enough. Okay, now we're going to go back into the power window and just disable it and see what we're looking at. Now we're very evenly saturated across the whole image, and now we're going to do skin tones. So let's just create a new node with Option S, go back into the power window, draw another box around the skin tones, just like this. Now we're going to go into vector scope again and go into the hue editor, or the hue versus hue editor. We're just going to add the dots again and move yellow just up a tiny bit to be right on that skin tone line. We're also gonna saturate a little bit more, so we're just going to do the same thing and bring those tones up just a little bit. There we go. Now let's disable our power window. There's our image. I feel like those colors are still not quite saturated enough, so let's bring up our saturation just a little bit, just like that. Now we don't want to go too far, but do remember on the vector scope that we do have that 2x enabled, so if you go into settings and disable it, we're still within our color space. That looks pretty good. Now, there's a couple things that I noticed that I wish I could fix. For example, that bucket is a little bit overexposed. Ideally, I just bring that light down. It already is at 1%, so I can't really do that. Let's see if we can fix that highlight a little bit. So, Option S, create new node, go back into curves, And so let's see if we bring the highlights down. See, it doesn't really want to do that. So what we're probably doing is just clipping in camera. Now we can fix this by dropping our ISO down to like 100. That's better. Exposure down, yeah, we're still clipping. So I'm just gonna leave this at ISO 400 like it was before. I think the whole image is a little bit too bright. Oh, that's right, it was actually at what, 250? There we go. Now let's pull up our waveform editor again and see that we're not clipping really anywhere, except for maybe just in the middle, like the top of my forehead is clipping just a little bit. So let's drop our ISO down to 200. That looks phenomenal. It's nice and bright and evenly lit, and everything is not oversaturated, but it looks pretty good. Let's go back again to our original clip, and you can see the difference here between this clip and this clip. Huge difference. And because it's Blackmagic Raw, we did almost all the edits with the raw controls. We didn't have to do a whole lot otherwise. Now, if I wanted to, I can grab the still like this by right-clicking and hit grab still, and I could apply this to the next grade. So I could just click on the next one, right-click on the little window right there, and hit apply grade, and it's done. What I can also do is export this still by right-clicking and hit export, and then I could import it into other timelines and apply my grade across all my videos. That way I don't have to go through this process again, and it just looks right. I could also right-click on the first clip and hit generate LUT, and then I could go through the necessary steps to apply the LUT in camera, so I don't even need to record in Blackmagic Raw. But we'll save that for another video. That's gonna be it for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and hit that notification bell to see when the next video comes out. And if you want to support the channel directly, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter, channel member, or using the affiliate links below. If you have any further questions about DaVinci Resolve or any of the gear that we use on the channel, let me know in the comment section down below. Well, that's it for today's video, and I'll see you in the next video.